Welcome back to Yield Today of Dallin, Candland. I'm here with Alison Smith. She uses nature in her coaching and has helped a lot of people with business and all these different aspects of business. I'm just excited to talk with her about these forest and nature metaphors and all the other good stuff she has to share. So thank you for coming, Alison.
Delighted to be here. Can't wait to have a chat with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll just start with like your growing up. Was there like any powerful, because you're in Scotland, did you grow up in Scotland? Were there like a lot of nature memories you had?
Yeah, I suppose we lived in a very nice country. I mean, it was a town, but there was lots of, if I think about going out as a teenager, we would actually quite often go out into the countryside. So there's various places that I have wanted to go back to recently because of remembering that. My grandparents always took us to the coast, so we'd go swimming with them. Um, so yes, perhaps more so than I think. And perhaps I take it for granted that we'd come to Scotland as a family holiday, or that we'd travel around. My dad liked taking photographs, and this is the first time I've ever considered the fact that, of course, him wanting to take landscape photographs meant that on family holidays we'd go somewhere beautiful for him to take nice photographs.
That's cool. So there was a member of your family that had this predisposition to take these beautiful photographs, and you going to those locations then.
Yeah, I think so. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, that's it. That's so great question. Thank you.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's just really interesting to me because I can think of different adventures I went on in my youth. My grandparents had like 4 or 5 acres in their backyard of just woods, and so I got to hang out in that. And when I was smaller, I got to hang out in these little water creek things and pretend to like swim in it. And it's beautiful when you're that young and when you continue to nurture that creativity a little bit and you can imagine yourself like being underwater or surrounded by fish, even though you're just in a little creek, it's really beautiful when you do that.
Yeah. I now realise that my granddad also grew vegetables and um, did sweet peas. Um, so yeah, even the holidays I had there would have been yeah, and he did some stuff on farms, and so I'd be visiting farms all the time, going out with granddad on his work, so yeah.
Those are beautiful memories. That's really cool. So when did you start like turning over to like the business realm? Were there other things you tried before getting into the business realm? How did that come about?
Um, well, I left university and went into purchasing in large organisations, and in the mid '90s was struggling to explain supplier management to our internal stakeholders, because they're going, what? We're getting really excited, going, you got to do this, you got to do that, and they're going, yeah, yawn, yeah, we know about that. And we could have gone down the very traditional route, I suppose, of trying to teach them about it. And I realised, certainly here in the UK, most people have got gardens. If they haven't got a garden, they know, the grandparents would have had a garden, or they'd have visited a garden. We've got loads of stately homes with gardens. So people know the concept of gardens, that things need mowing, they need pruning, that you can't just plonk a plant anywhere, that some like, shade, some like the sun. You might need different soil conditions. Some plants need time in the greenhouse. And I think what we discovered is when we said, "Oh, how many of you realise that about gardening?" Everybody's in the training course hand would go up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you just need to do that with suppliers, and the light bulbs went on. Oh, well, that explains it. We're just plonking suppliers in the ground and expecting them to grow, and they're not growing because they would always blame the plant. It's the plant's fault for not growing from a supplier point of view. Why is the supplier not delivering? Well, hang on a minute. Quite often it's about what do we need to do differently. So the gardening metaphor pushed it back on them as the gardener. What are you doing that need to do differently? So that was the mid '90s, and we did that quite a lot because it was successful. So it's like, why not do that? And then I went on a neuro linguistic programming course, which sort of helped me understand why that worked. And and then in sessions there, I started going, oh, well, we don't have to just do gardening. We could do nature's landscapes more broadly. And oh, we don't have to do supply management. We can do life. So in 2000, Landscaping Your Life was born. I still continued to do purchasing and added in all of the soft skills stuff. So I suppose over time, more of my work, even in a purchasing environment in business, was about soft skills, taking personal responsibility, learning about ourselves. And over time, I then became the coach in the department. So we merged departments, and oh, Alison's the one that does comms. Alison's the one that, if you're struggling, go to Alison, you know. So any problem, Alison's got a tool, you know. So when I left there to set up myself and work for myself as a consultant, what I was reminded of the other day was that 3 years later, somebody said to me, you know, this is where I used to work, we still say when we're struggling, what would Alison do? And it's as if it helps them tap into this unconventional set of tools. So when they're really struggling, they'll go, oh, what would she do? Oh, well, she'd ask us to do this, or she'd get us to draw that, and so it's just nice because I'm not there. So it's just them not wanting to say, oh, I think we should draw. They'd rather go, well, Alison would, you know, that unconventional woman, she had us doing this. So shall we try that? And so over time, it's just got more and more. And then I wrote the book, Can't See the Wood for the Trees. And I think now, and then I got to 60 last year, and it's like, you know what? I do want to do more of getting that landscaping your life, because life's short. So yeah, so the podcast came about. Yeah, so that's sort of the journey with where we're at to now.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it's just kind of come together. And I love the word plunk so much. I think you said it twice. And I guess I've forgotten how much I love that word because, yeah, it was just really, really great. You can't just plunk and then it's just going to work automatically. Like, that's just not how it works. But if
Yeah.
you're willing to, have people to like water the thing and like help it grow. I've seen that with my podcast and some of the other things that have happened that can help it to get closer to where it needs to go. And then as it grows, you might need to prune some things to help it grow also, because sometimes the growth is happening in one direction and we're like, oh no, we don't want that. But then
Yeah.
we do that and then it grows that way and we're able to do that. And yeah, I don't know. I think that's really beautiful how you're able to apply that and how you're able to also see these things so clearly and then help other people see them too. Things that they maybe haven't ever seen before, but you speak that
Yeah.
and then they're able to see it in their mind.
Yeah, I think I've learned to trust the metaphor. Certainly nature. So if you were to use football as a metaphor, I don't understand football well enough, really, to be able to fully dive in. Whereas nature, I understand. Day follows night. Tides come in and out, and all right, tides around the world may be different, so I do need to account for that. But I just trust the process. So if somebody wants to turn a corner, I'll go, let's go find a corner, let's turn it, let's find out what you notice. And even now, having done it for 20 or 23 years, I still worry that this is going to be the one time when somebody turns a corner and doesn't get it. But that never happens because the corners are always unique. It's like I know that when you turn a corner, what you see around that corner you couldn't see before. But oh, the beauty of nature in that moment, and the person who's doing the exploring, their ability to see the pattern they need to see that relates to is just beautiful. And they'll just go, oh, and they'll notice I'm getting goosebumps now because it's just lovely. Because, I've written a book, Can't See the Wood for the Trees, and you'd think I'd have all the answers if you can't see the wood for the trees. But every time you go out into a wood with somebody, they'll see something different. A different pattern or a different way of exploring the the crossroads they come up with, or the paths, or the trees, or the relationship between the trees and the day, time of year or the time of day. There's so many patterns within nature, and they're literally sitting there for you to go, oh, that's the one that makes meaning for me today. Not that I get
It's
it enthusiastic or anything.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I think I've been spending a lot of time pondering on like various seasons that we all go through in life, and there's a book that's like talks about like to be successful you have to like take the stairs. It's like the name of the book, and I listened to it in college, and I don't remember a ton of what I got out of the book, but I do remember what it talked about like with having certain seasons and how you need to respect the season you're in and not try to cram 50,000 things into one season. Like we're not going to get, a ton of flooding and a ton of sun and a ton of snow and everything else in the same season. It's just not going to work like that. But if you're willing to flow with the season and not completely like just get in the way every time, then it can really lead to something beautiful even if it's not what you'd expected.
Yeah, I think the thing there is that people get very impatient, and it's the if we plant a seed, you can't, you don't go and look at the seed the next day and sort of pull it out and go, have you grown yet? Have you grown yet? And all right, there are some seeds that grow quicker than others, but it is that you've just got to give it the right conditions. So you do need to give it the sunlight, you do need to water it, perhaps keep it out of the wind and protect it or whatever. But you're just going to have to sit there and let it grow, and some things will take longer. And that's the hard bit because you just got to sit there and, allow
Yeah.
it to appear. Trust that you're doing everything. I think the other thing is perhaps sometimes the other element of that is we sometimes only plant one seed. I'm doing runner beans at the moment, and the boy next door had done me some, and I've had to do some, and actually we're really struggling to keep them alive at the moment. So if we'd have only had 3 runner bean seeds, we really wouldn't be looking for any harvest whatsoever, because this year compared to last year, we needed to, I suspect, to have planted about 20, 30 seeds in order to just get 8 that will actually give us runner beans later in the year. So, I mean, that was just a few examples of the way that you can go on just seeds. So, yeah. And then, harvesting, then you've got your winter where it's the quieting down. So, yeah, seasons are brilliant.
Yeah, and you just don't know because something could not grow in one season, but if you keep it going, then it could really bloom in another season. I've thought about that in terms of like a podcast or even writing a book or anything like that. Like you might get some of the basic stuff done in one season of your life, and then the next season everything just kind of falls into place more or less. Or last year was a little crazy for me, but now I feel like a lot of me now is writing about all of that crazy because it was so
Yeah,
crazy. I was writing about different stuff while going through the crazy, and now I can write about all of that stuff because I have a different perspective on it. So there's just a season for it.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I wrote my book. It got published, what, 2018, but it feels like it's now getting a bit of head of steam again. So we got some royalties right at the beginning, then it wasn't over the threshold, but it started to this last December. Oh, I've got some royalties. Royalties arrived. Oh, okay. So what's that about? So yeah. So I think and I planted some Himalayan poppies. Um, they're beautifully blue flowers, and I planted them, and then of course suddenly realised that they only flower biennially. No, is it every other year anyway? So having planted them this year, they're not going to flower till next year, and I didn't realise that. So yeah, sometimes we'll plant something, and yeah, it'll be a while until it, you know,
Yeah.
pops its
Yeah, I
head up
think
and goes, hello.
yeah, it's definitely always worth the wait. And I think sometimes we want to rush things, and a lot of culture these days will be like, hey, you can start this and a very short period of time. And there are those things that are kind of like a lightning strike, more or less, and it catches fire. But a lot of times it isn't like that. And we do need to respect, like, we got to respect the process and trust the process, like you said.
Like trees. I mean, trees have got roots, and the roots aren't there, immediately. So, you grow roots down, and therefore that enables the tree to be bigger. Um, but we had some winds here in the UK, and we had decimated a whole load of trees, and it was because the winds came from the direction the roots weren't ready for. So I don't know, for example, the trees had all grown roots to protect them against a westerly wind, for example. So actually any westerly wind and the tree would stay up. But because the wind came from east, I don't know, some other direction, just loads of trees were fell because they didn't have the roots. So again, it's the what are we doing to protect ourselves so that we can, with COVID, I suspect, is one of those things when the wind came from a completely different direction, and therefore, yeah, it's not a surprise that we fell over. But hopefully, we're all coming back up now and going, oh right, we need roots that go in all directions, so that it doesn't matter which direction the wind comes from.
That's good. That's powerful, powerful metaphor there. So with your book, is that mostly just a collection of all these metaphors in one place, or what does the book do?
We Yeah, and interestingly, this week I thought, oh, you know what? On the podcast, I've got a whole load of new sayings. So basically, can't see the wood for the trees. You do have to read it from your own cultural idiom point of view. So it might be, oh, that phrase doesn't work here. You need to change it. So can't see the wood for the trees. Some cultures might call it can't see the forest for the trees. Although I would say if that's the case, it's a different meaning. So yeah, so the books, it's got a bit of the theory. So if you're a coach, you might read part one because that gives you the theory that enables you to use it with clients. But if you're using it because you're stuck, then you just go straight to part two. And there's sayings like can't see the wood for the trees, going round in circles, treading water, up a creek without a paddle, um, out on a limb, like a fish out of water. So phrases we use when we're stuck. And then each chapter basically looks at that landscape really and says, what would the solutions be? And you've got about, I don't know, 4 or 5 different techniques for each chapter. So it's each saying, but it explores. If you can't see the wood for the trees, I would say go out into a wood, explore the wood, and just notice what you notice about your experience of the wood, how you engage with the wood. So I had somebody where I was doing a landscaping your life virtual walk. So I'm sitting in my office. They are walking around the Everglades in Florida with a bit of gator jeopardy as well nearby. But anyway, we did. Thankfully, the gators didn't come out. But when I said, so where do you want to get to? So they're saying, I can't see the wood for the trees. I can't see the wood for the trees. And I said, where do you want to get to? Now, this is metaphorically. So I wasn't asking about the situation we're dealing with. Metaphorically, tell me in this landscape you're walking around in Florida that's a wood. Where do you want to get to? Oh, there. Oh, that tree there. And he turned his camera around and showed me the tree he wanted to get to. And I said, well, that looks like it's the other side of the wood. Uh-huh. So why do you want to see the wood for the trees? Oh, I don't. And he realised the wood and all of the paths in the wood was he knew he needed to get to that tree, but as he was walking through the wood, he kept seeing other paths, and he'd get distracted by, oh, perhaps this path might be a nice path, and I might spend a bit of time there, and he was just getting distracted with the paths, and he knew he needed to. So sometimes our language is hiding really because we're hiding behind, oh, I've got to see the wood, I've got to see the trees. No, you don't, because actually you want to get to the other side. So yeah, so if you want to turning a corner isn't in the book, but treading water, for instance, is. I've done a podcast on that where I was in the sea here in Scotland, so quite cold. I think it was about 43.
Mm.
So it was what temperature is it here? About 6 degrees, 7 degrees water. ice on the, frost on the sand. But I'm there with my selfie stick, treading water, trying to keep the camera out out of the water, to emulate the treading water. To say, if you're treading water, what do you need to do? Because treading water can be really tiring. When we use that phrase, it's I'm tired. It's a constant go, 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 but I'm running out of energy. So when I was in the water, then it's, well, actually, I can float. Wow. And that releases that, as soon as you imagine moving from treading water to floating, something inside shifts. Or putting your feet down. Or I had somebody on a coaching session say, but there's a boat there with somebody. Why am I not asking for help? So we notice what we need to notice. So the person noticing the boat, that doesn't often happen, but I think it is the fact that their pattern was they're trying to do it on their own, were never asking for help, even when they were struggling. I've got to do it on my own. And so their insight was, why am I even trying to do it on my own? There's lots of people out there willing to help. I just need to put my hand up and go, can you help? So the book is part, if you feel like you can't see the wood for the trees, if you're stuck in a rut, here's what I suggest you do. But it's also then got lots of, this is what I've discovered when I've done this with people. So there's always a story of me doing it with some business leader or client in nature. So there's always a story to start to give you a sense of possible. And sometimes that's enough, and then, yes, different techniques. And as I say, the Landscaping Your Life podcast just takes that idea and applies it to more sayings. So you're at a crossroads, you're turning a corner, beating yourself up with a stick. That's a great one. Stuck between a rock and a hard place, uphill struggle, being dragged through a hedge backwards. I'm not sure I quite got all the insight for that one, but that's the, you try it and you go, like, nah. I'm not sure we do say I'm feeling like I'm dragged through a hedge backwards when we're stuck, thankfully. But the putting the sticks down you beat yourself up with is a nice one, because I suspect most people listening can think of things where they beat themselves up, where they have a go at themselves and go, why did I do that? So I shouldn't said it like that. So the phrase is, put the stick down you're beating yourself up with. And during COVID, I was looking at, I'd go out for a walk with the 10-year-old next door. And so he's there doing my, the video bit. And I was gathering sticks, and I was expecting to pick one stick up and just put it down and just notice what I noticed. It's like, oh no, I've got to pick up a few sticks. And so when I do it with people now, it's like, how many sticks do you need to pick up? And are they all big or are they little? And do you need to go a bit further afield? And then just notice what you notice when you put them down. Now, that in and of itself, and there is a video blog on YouTube of me doing that in and of itself is really quite powerful, because you remember in the future, no, I've put the sticks down, I'm not going to beat myself up. But when I was doing the podcast episode for it, I was at the top of a hill and I looked around and went, oh, but there aren't any sticks here, because there were no trees at the top of this hill. But I thought that in life, at no point do we ever not have any sticks to beat ourselves up with. We've always got them. So the insight I got, which makes me laugh every time I say it, is it means we go out and pick up sticks in advance of us needing them. Oh, I've got to go and gather sticks to beat myself up in the future, because I know I'm going to beat myself up in the future and I've got to have these sticks to do it. So that's what's powerful about the metaphor, because at no point do I sort of jump back to real life, because in real life you could say, oh no, I just beat myself up immediately. It's like, no, hang on a minute. We've got to stick with the metaphor. The metaphor is I've got to pick a stick up in order to beat myself up. And then when you think about it, you go, yeah, you're right. I'll remember. It's like in the mental health training we do. You might have had 6 good things that go right in a day, but you remember the one thing that went wrong. And that's the stick that we pick up and go, oh, I'll remember that next week. I'm not going to remember the 6 that went well. I'm going to get this stick and put it in my stick beating myself up bag. And then the next day something else, and we have this bag with all these sticks in, and I just got this vision of, oh, I do that, and I'm putting them in it. And so then when I got that realization for me, it's like, I know, I'm not going to have a bag. I'm not going to pick these sticks up. Now, I'm not saying I don't beat myself up, but the pattern of behaviour has been disrupted. And I think that's what this process does. It disrupts this happens, I automatically do that. So I have a bad day, I automatically put it in my, whatever I called it earlier. What's it? It's hard to say. My stick beating up bag or whatever. It's like, no, but there isn't a bag now. So if I pick the stick up with the thought of beating myself up in the future, it's like, no, I'm going to put it down again. There is no, metaphorically in my mind, I've rubbed out the bag. So I can only carry so many sticks. And actually, my hands want to be free to take photographs or whatever. So metaphors just brill. That's why I love them, because it's stick with the metaphor.
That's good.
Going
Yeah,
against the flow. Going against the flow is water can't go against the flow. So don't.
that's good. Yeah, I love the energy. I love the passion. And I was thinking about, like, if you're holding a bunch of sticks, you're not gonna be able to give random people high fives. It's like, I'm holding all these sticks. I'm not. I
Yeah.
can't. We can't. I can't do that. I'm sorry. I'm holding all these sticks to beat myself up with later. And it's interesting. Last year, I really shared how I was feeling with some people that have always been like, hey, if you ever need anything, like, talk to me about anything. And I talked to some of those people and was like, yeah, this is what I'm experiencing, this is what I'm feeling. And I realized how much I was holding back from people, how much I wasn't sharing all these things I was carrying. But then when I shared it with them, it helped me to see, like, it wasn't like I was going through anything super ridiculously unique, you know. There's this beautiful quote that I love so much that I try to keep in mind, and it's that anything human cannot be alien to me. I
Whoa.
am able to understand you on some level, even if I don't completely understand, and or at least I'm able to listen. And I think that's one of the greatest gifts, that any of these big crazy moments, like if you're getting caught up in like a riptide or something, you remember that and you're able to tell somebody else, like, oh yeah, I remember that. Maybe they don't want to hear that from you, but you're still able to, if they're ready to listen. And for me, like, even with any of this crazy stuff that happens, I mean, it does can lead to transformation, and it can really lead to so much change. And you see that with trees, you see that with all these other things that they adapt and they grow through this crazy upheaval, but still the thing stands, and it waddles, or whatever the thing is, it continues. There's a real beauty to that.
I mean, I think that's, yeah, because otherwise nature wouldn't flourish, would it? So it's like, you're right. Perhaps I'm using a metaphor because, well, if man doesn't continue to do what it's doing, but nature in and of itself will survive, and it's very good at adapting. You're right, and very good at flourishing, and therefore, if we follow its lead, then so may we.
That's good. I love that. So, what's been like one of the most recent metaphors you've pulled out of that, like, because you have like this toolbox now, and like, I'm looking for these, and I'd appreciate more of these, right? And so, what's one that's like come to mind that you're excited to talk about?
Oh, blimey. I think it's the crossroad. I think it's the crossroads that I did, because I've done it a few times, but I think it was the crossroads I did the other week in Edinburgh Botanical Gardens. The person I was with had said they were at a crossroads. and quite often we're not. But anyway, I went with it. And the good thing about the botanical gardens is there's loads of paths and therefore there's loads of crossroads. So we were able to experiment, and we kept coming to the crossroads and we're going. So I'm saying, so which direction do you want to go? And the pattern that emerged was them going, oh, I want to go the direction where there is no signpost. And somehow we'd managed to find every crossroads where, say, if there were three directions bar the one we'd just come from, two of them were signposted and one wasn't. And they always wanted to go for the one that wasn't. But that was perfect, perfect for the insight they needed, because it was about what sort of work they wanted, the conversation they needed to have at work, and it enabled them the language to be able to go, oh, this is why I don't feel right in the position you've put me in. This is where my strengths are. This is what I want. And it was just beautiful, because within an hour they'd got that insight, which if we'd have talked about the crossroads in work, we wouldn't have even got past the why they didn't like the job they were doing at the moment. Because it was I'm at a crossroads, right? So, because I don't really want to know a lot about the content of the situation. That's the beauty of it. It's, we're putting, I say we're sending logic or thinking on a coffee break. We're sending the content, the data, the reason we're currently stuck on a coffee break. So it is being put to one side while we immerse ourselves in the metaphor so that we can explore. And then logical thinking can come and go, oh, what does that mean? What action might I want to take? But it's about, I think, metaphor does a number of things. It opens doors in our mind to the solution. So we've already got the solutions. We already know what we want to do. It's just that for whatever reason, the door's closed in our mind. And I think, and the way I describe it is that metaphor talks to our inner wisdom, however we define that. And it talks to inner wisdom. So it's bypassing the logical thinking, which can be quite protective of us. It can be quite stuck in its ways. It might be a bit fearful. Whereas our inner wisdom and creative thinking is a bit more, adventurous, really, and it sort of wants more for us. And I would say metaphor helps us tap in with who we are, sort of under the must, sorts and shoulds. So it's as if we're letting our real selves out for a little bit to say, I really want to go down those paths that have got no signposts, and then come back to the situation and go, oh, that's why I'm asking for that. Absolutely. And so within an hour, I think that's the beauty of these sessions. I had one person ring me up 5 minutes. She rang up and said, I was writing the book at the time, and she said, I've got to do something, got a deadline for 5 o'clock and I can't see the wood for the trees. And I went, well, hang on a minute. What sort of trees is it? Oh, it's huge. It's a forest. I said, well, you can't see a forest because a forest is too big. Oh, well, if it's some wood. And literally by me saying it couldn't be a forest, it had to be a wood, she went, oh, that feels better. And she literally put the phone down on me because it felt better. She knew what she needed to do. Her deadline was looming and she had sort of moved out of overwhelm. So the brilliant thing about metaphor is that you can really shift your thinking and open those doors really quite quickly. And that feeds my, not wanting to get bored.
Wow. Yeah, this has been quite a thrilling discussion. I've seen this for sure where you kind of have this like thought that comes to mind, like, well, what if it's more like this? Maybe I'm looking at this kind of poorly, and yeah, things can like click, and it's super beautiful how that works. Thanks for sharing that, Allison. How do we get in touch with you and follow your journey and what you're doing?
Landscaping Your Life will find me on most social media. So Landscaping Your Life on YouTube, Landscaping Your Life on Instagram, although I'm not that active there. Landscaping Your Life on Landscaping Your Life, even on Amazon, will find the Can't See the Wood for the Trees book, because the tagline is Landscaping Your Life to Get Back on Track. The podcast is Landscaping Your Life. with Alison Smith, because Alison Smith, there's a few out of us out there, so you might be struggling to find me. So if you do Landscaping Your Life and Alison, you'll find me, I suspect. But Landscaping Your Life will do it, because thankfully I've used it for so long, and nobody else has. So that'll you'll find me through that.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I guess a little aside, when I started the Yield Today podcast, there was somebody that was like the Yield podcaster is like some similar thing, and it was like almost the exact same thing, but then they stopped like, a little bit after. They started after me and then they eventually fell off. So I don't know if you really feel for these metaphors or something, you're willing to suffer for them, you're willing to create for them so they can get more out there. And that's how I feel about Yield Today, and how you feel about what you're doing. I just think that's really beautiful and look forward to chatting with you down the road. And we'll have there we go, I just used a metaphor. But like
Yeah,
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 on the
yeah,
other side of the forest and whatever. Yeah, it'll be fun. And
yeah.
I just look forward to talking to you. And everybody check out the links in the show notes if anything resonated. And I'll 100% check out the book before we talk next time because I'm really curious.
Brilliant.
So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. It was
Been
awesome.
great. And you.
Thank you.